Okay, I'm going to have to call this hypocrisy out again. Martina Navratilova, she is against Leah Thompson, the trans woman, beating all the women in the competition. She sees her as a man. She'll never admit that, but she can't help it. She is admitting it. You can't have it both ways. So this is what it is. The LGBT is feminist run. It's run by the women, and the trans women are supposed to be good little attack dogs to get after men. And when they start demanding sacrifices from these women, like beating them in competitions, all of a sudden these liars show their true colors. And notice, Prime, all these women are given a voice by the major media because the media is feminist run.
Outside the college swimming championships in Atlanta, Georgia, a group of protesters are calling on the NCAA to save women's sports.
And notice this time they're using gender neutral terms. Protesters, they're all women pretty well here. So they could say women, but this is one of the few times they won't say women. They'll say gender neutral protesters because they don't want to point out the obvious that the women do not want these trans women in their locker rooms or beating them at sports.
Protect athletes and protect fairness. Inside that stadium.
What do you mean protect athletes? Again, a gender neutral term. Protect athletes from what? And fairness, how's it not fair? All you women, is Leah Thompson a woman or isn't she? If it's unfair, then you're saying she's not a woman. So see how there's no fence for these people to straddle, but they're trying to.
Is an athlete who has been making waves all season. Just hours ago, Leah Thomas became the first known transgender woman to win a Division I swimming title. She placed first in the 500-yard freestyle and could win more races in the coming days.
This is it, isn't it? This is the problem. They're all right as long as these trans women know their place, that they're subservient, and they're for attacking men. But as soon as they start gaining something and from the women in the LGBT, now it's an issue.
Some of her teammates say it is just not fair, adding that they can't compete with Leah because she is biologically different from them.
You see these lying people, these hypocrites. They can't come out and say Leah Thompson is a man. It's not correct for them to do it because then it would destroy the feminist narrative. So they try to straddle it by saying she's biologically different. Biological difference just means she's a man. That's what they're saying. But they're trying not to say it, but they can't help themselves.
Tonight, for the first time on television, one of the most famous female athletes in history is weighing in. Tennis player Martina Navratilova, with 18 Grand Slam singles titles, including 9 Wimbledon championships, 31 Grand Slam doubles titles, and also one of the first openly gay athletes. Martina is now a champion of LGBT rights.
Yeah, exactly. She's a lesbian, and the lesbians control the LGBT, and they're anti-male. They're feminists and they're anti-male. And that's what her issue is. And she's going to try to pretend she's not. And the thing about, and the thing is, she knows that if in her day, if trans women could compete, she wouldn't be the top dog she is. And I'd like to argue too, is that Martina is very masculine presenting. So if you're not allowed Leah Thompson to compete, people could make the same argument for her. No women that are this masculine and this high in testosterone should be allowed to compete. They should all be very feminine women allowed to play. Someone could make that argument.
And in an exclusive interview with Rich McHugh, she says it is the NCAA that has this wrong. And what is happening in the pool in Atlanta is about way more than swimming.
Of course, it's way more than swimming. It's whether these women will have to sacrifice something. They'll main with enough trans women involved, you may never see these women win. That's what it is.
Where do you come out on Leah Thomas, whether she should be competing in the NCAA championships?
Well, we're pointing fingers not at Leah at all. She has been playing by the book, whatever the rules are. She's supposedly has been playing by them. Have been taking.
See this fakeness. Oh, she's a good little ally. We're not against her. She played by the book. But if Martina wants to change the book, she's basically against Leah Thompson competing. So she doesn't want trans women in competing with women. She sees them as men, not just biologically different, as men, and she doesn't want them competing. Martina sees Leah Thompson as a man stealing from women.
Playing by them, have been taking hormone replacement therapy for a couple of years now. This is not about Leah. This is about clearly as a man, when she was swimming as a man, she was finishing 200, 300, 400. Now she is finishing first. Which shows to me, if she had been born female in the first place, she would not be succeeding the way she is succeeding now.
That's not her problem. Because if she was a female and she was succeeding, she'd still be female and she'd be saying, oh, she's such a great female athlete. Also, is Martina trying to give the false idea that if this woman, as a man, when she was a man, was kicking ass as a man, that she would be saying, oh, it's all right, she was kicking ass as a man, now she's going to compete with the women? No, she would still be in the same boat. So this is a false argument she's making.
Navratilova, a champion of LGBT rights, is a member of the Women's Sports Policy Working Group, pushing for fairness and safety for females.
And listen to that disgusting attack on men. Female safety. What are they harmed against? They're saying men are out to get women. What a low-life thing to say.
Instead of blanket transgender inclusion or exclusion in women's sports.
Inclusion or exclusion, you can't have it both ways. There isn't a third option. They're either believed to be women and are included, or they're believed not to be women and are excluded. Those are your two choices. There isn't a fence to straddle.
Leah spoke to Sports Illustrated recently and says, I am a woman, I should be competing on the women's team. Do you agree with that?
Everybody wants to swim as a female because it's an easier field, I think, to compete in. Leah, I don't agree that she should be allowed to swim, but again, she's going by the rules.
Again, well, she shouldn't be. Okay, she just admitted she doesn't believe she's a woman. She can't come right out and say she's not a woman because she'll be labeled a TERF. So she says, I just don't believe she should be competing. Well, why not? Because she doesn't believe she's a woman. And this fact is, all you people who are listening, I want you to understand there are no TERFs. There are no TERFs. All these feminist women, all these women, period, whether feminist or not, do not want to have trans women beating them. They don't see them as women, and they don't want them losing constantly to them.
So the rules need to change. The rules need to change because this is not a fair fight. If I was
okay, so if you change the rules, then Leah Thompson can't compete. Then she's not a woman.
Female swimmer, I don't have a chance. I really don't have a chance to be competing against Leah.
Is the NCAA at fault for allowing Leah to compete?
Absolutely. Well, no, it's not about Leah now. They kick the can.
Yes, it is about Leah. She doesn't want Leah beating all these women because she sees him as a man. It is about him. She's lying.
Down the road, NCAA, all the governing bodies of sports, they kick the can down the road, particularly the IOC. They really don't want anything to do with it. And what the rules that.
Why is she blaming this organization? This woman and her ilk have pushed trans women as women when they were good little attack dogs against us men. So they're the ones kicking the can, not the NCAA or whatever it is. What a bunch of feminist lies, as if there's ever a truthful feminist. Feminism is built on lies.
I said without any meaningful conversation from experts, from scientists, from athletes themselves. They just kind of did it in a vacuum. They still.
No, they didn't. They followed this woman's example, and they treated that they said trans women are women, and they took their marching orders, and they don't realize that these trans women cannot compete with women because everyone thinks they're men. That's why they don't want them competing. This organization did what it was told to do, and now these same women are pissing on it.
To this day, they don't want to talk about it, and they want the different sports bodies make the decisions and set the rules, but then they're not adhering to them anyway. Now,
yeah, they weren't made in a vacuum. It's just that these women can't come right out and say and admit what they're doing, and that's why nothing goes forward. They can't admit what they're doing and showing exactly what they are.
they're saying it's going to be next year. We'll see. But they need to do a better job, and they need to get these scientific experts in the field that say, okay, this is how it needs to go.
Okay, these scientific experts, what are they going to say? That trans women aren't women. They'd have to say that. Yet this woman cannot come out and say that. They're trying to have it both ways. What she expects is these organizations to take the hint, wink, wink, say that they're women, but make sure that women don't have to sacrifice anything to keep up the lie.
Otherwise, the controversy will continue.
What, in your opinion, is the solution here? What is the right way forward?
Well, it's not about excluding transgender women from women.
Yes, it is. She's a bold-faced liar right now. If you change the rules so that trans women can't compete, that's exclusion.
Ever. But it is about not allowing them to win when they were not anywhere near winning as men. The solution.
This is again a lie. If Leah Thompson was kicking ass as a man and she converted over the women, she would be kicking these women's asses even harder. And Martina here wouldn't want that. So her framing is a complete lie.
Perhaps for now is to swim in a lane, or you can compete, but you don't get the medal because.
Wow. So you can compete, but you don't get the medal. Then why would she compete then?
The rules are not correct, but right now the rules are what they are. Maybe put
you can play, but you can't win.
an asterisk there. If she starts breaking records left and right, Leah goes to the Olympics because she's hitting her prime now physically. And in the future, maybe it should be an open category for everybody, and then biological females.
In 2019, I believe you.
So open category for everybody. But have biological female separate. See, it's just another term. It's a lying term to get away from calling this woman a man, but it doesn't work because she's calling Leah Thompson a man. It's that simple.
You came out and gave your position that transgender women athletes should not be allowed to compete as women.
Notice there's nothing about trans men though. Trans men, it's all right for them to join up the men's and get their butts kicked. I'm telling you now, you should realize why they don't ever bring up trans men. It's because they see the trans women as carpetbaggers, people who have stolen, men who are stealing from women. That's how they see it.
Your position changed at all, or is that still your belief?
So I educated myself and said, okay, I'm going to learn a lot more about everything.
In other words, her friends came along and say, if you don't want to be called a TERF, this is how you've got to tell your latest lie. And
how it all works, even though I thought I knew more than most people because of Renee Richards, who has been a lifelong friend and came to the same conclusion pretty much that we try to include transgender women as much as possible, but it needs to be fair.
You personally have been labeled a TERF. You've been labeled transphobic. Do you consider those definitions accurate, or those descriptions
No,
accurate?
of course not. Of course they're not accurate. I'm not scared, nor am I exclusionary or any of that.
Yes, you are. You're excluding Leah Thompson from competition against other women. So she is exclusionary. It's a bold-faced lie. I can look at this video and say this is a bold-faced lie, and it wouldn't be slander. She is lying now. She wants Leah Thompson excluded, and she's working towards that.
I welcome all athletes. I love competing, so I understand.
And again, no offense to Martina, but look how mannish she looks. She's got a man's face. And then look at this pretty young girl. This young girl could make an argument that someone like Martina shouldn't be allowed to compete. She should have to compete with trans women. Just an idea.
That people want to compete and want that opportunity. The climate is such that people can't speak out or even ask questions. And then the athletes.
No, they can't speak out and ask questions. This is bullshit. This is more bullshit. We just want a discussion. This is like white nationalists when they say, I want a discussion. This isn't a discussion. This woman wants to kick Leah Thompson out because she doesn't see her as a her. And she doesn't want women to lose anything to people she sees as men.
These themselves are not allowed to speak out. They've been warned to be quiet. They've been warned to not say anything. They may lose their scholarship. Who knows how they would be punished in normal.
So in other words, a woman might get canceled for a change instead of a man. And again, these women have to sacrifice something to keep up their own bullshit narrative.
Society, in everyday life, absolutely 100% inclusion. When it comes to sport, we have categories based on biology. And
so she wants inclusion society-wise, probably because the women don't lose out, but they don't want for sports. Navratilova, she's either a woman or she isn't. You've got, people, I know you don't have to make a stance, but people should be calling you out and saying, no, there is no fence. Say it, you coward.
That's pretty much that.
In the 1970s, Navratilova played against Renee Richards, one of the first professional athletes to identify as transgender. After Richards retired, she coached Navratilova to 2 Wimbledon titles. What do you make of the fact that we are having the same conversation? You are in the center of a conversation that you were in, I think it was 40 years ago, and we're having it again today.
Look, I was very welcoming of Renee, and I thought it was great. But she had the reassignment surgery. She lived as a woman for a long, long time, and there was no doubt in our minds that she's a woman. At the same time, had she started beating us, I don't know if I would have felt the same way. Because as a man, Renee wasn't even ranked top 100, but as a woman in her 40s, she was in top 30. And
yeah, of course. So she's bullshitting and saying she accepts this woman as a woman unless she got into sports and started beating Martina, then she would have an issue. Then she's not a woman. Trust me, these women do not believe that trans women are women. They don't. They're lying when they say they do. Because again, as soon as they have to sacrifice and the pretense drops.
By the way, Renee Richards agrees with me on this, that she probably...
Yeah, she's a good little ally who knows her place. That's why she agrees. So this woman she's talking about, she's willing to be a second-class citizen in the LGBT. She's willing to say, yeah, I'm a woman until you say I'm not a woman, until I get to get laurels for being a woman. Trust me, this whole video disgusts me. Martina disgusts me. These feminists disgust me. And frankly, who am I kidding? The average woman who pretends that trans women are women until they have to lose out instead of men for a change. Now, these people disgust me. This goes beyond feminists. This is the average woman shitting on men and using trans people as attack dogs. And just soon as they have to, back up their bullshit with some kind of, self-sacrifice, then they turn on. This is so standard. Anyway, that's what I have to say about this garbage.